Hi, everyone. My name is Brinley Brooks, and I am the founder of HS Connect. And today we are here with Dr. Katelyn Baker, who is a doctor of clinical psychology based outside of the Chicago area. And she is also known as That Fat Doctor on TikTok and most other social media channels. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, you have quite the social media following. Was that expected or was that totally unexpected?
That was a happy accident, is what I like to say. Yeah, I just kind of started posting, and I saw a video of a woman that was plus sized, and she was crying because she was being bullied on the app, and I had just a strong reaction to it. And I'm someone who can take that without it affecting me. And I just was thinking, like, maybe that example will really be helpful if there's a need for that. So that was kind of how it started. And I just made a video, and then it blew up. And then I made another video, and it blew up. And here we are.
Well, I'm grateful for it. And my kids actually led me to you, my two daughters. They just absolutely what you said and the way that you portrayed yourself absolutely resonated with them. And they were like, Mom, you have to see her. So I was really grateful that you had such an impact on my kids. Because I think especially the way that you handle yourself and having HS is really a difficult thing. So to see you be so self-confident about that really was touching for me, and I think touching for them. So thank you. I really
You're
appreciate
making me
that.
cry already. You just started. um, it is strange for me. I don't realize the impact sometimes, or the reach that it gets, because it's just me making little videos in my house, and then to hear stories like that, and it reminds me, on the days where I don't feel like doing this, or it reminds me why I do this, and that's a great reminder. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right that you have no idea how broad your reach is. And
I have no
I
idea,
don't know that
honestly.
you ever really will, like the fact that you have such an impact so silently on so many people is amazing. So, and especially with our community, we really need someone like you who has that reach and that stand up, who can just say, this is me, love me, flaws and all, scars and all. It's such a tough thing for especially the HS crowd. So
Yeah,
thank you.
of course. I love doing
Um,
it.
well, tell me a little bit about your background and kind of what led you to this self-love and acceptance movement for yourself.
Yeah, so I didn't know it was a thing. I was just kind of living my life. I was not very active on social media whatsoever. I didn't even have my Instagram was private, just friends and family. Facebook, never really used it, have one. I joined TikTok during quarantine, the first quarantine round, because I was bored and I heard that it was funny, and I was okay. And I found very quickly that there was actually like a movement, or a fat liberation movement, a body positive movement, all these things, which I had just been living my life that way and just doing my own thing. And then I realized, like, there were all these terms for these things, and there was like actual activism. And I just was like, I need to be a part of this. I have to be a part of this. It just fits so naturally. So yeah, I started social media at 26, and it's been a absolutely wild ride, to say the least. And then in terms of self love, I've just always, not always, I've struggled like many other people up until teenage years, and even through grad school. I had a professor who brought up the topic of fat phobia in the workplace. It was the first time that I had ever heard of that term, like fat phobia. I had no idea what it was. I was the only larger body in the room, so that felt a little awkward when we were talking about that topic. But I remember it had such an impact on me, and I said, this is exactly my experience. This sums up so many things for me that I didn't realize was a collective shared experience. So I immediately emailed that professor, and I was like, thank you so much for this. And since that moment, I have been living my life in a very different way, full of self-compassion and self-love, and realizing how much impact society had on me and my own self-worth. And I gave the power back to myself and took it away from society, because once you realize exactly how much fat phobia is entrenched within our society and like why it exists and how it exists, it just seems silly to think that way anymore. So why not love yourself? It's a lot easier.
Yes, it is. It's so, I find though it's so much easier to be more like critical instead of accepting.
Yeah.
And just for myself and of other people. So it takes more work almost to be the opposite, to give yourself a little more grace. Maybe while you're testing it out and getting used to it then.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like it's a very learned thing.
Yeah.
And it takes practice. Maybe easier wasn't the correct word. It's makes you feel lighter, I guess, compared to always feeling bogged down and negative about not only yourself but other people, and then comparing yourself to everyone else all the time. Like, that is exhausting to me.
Yes.
And this way is much more fluid, and I just am living my life like how normal people live their lives. So
yeah, the weight of other people's opinions is very, very heavy. For sure. That makes complete sense. Yes.
Absolutely.
And how long have you had HS?
I was officially diagnosed at 15, 14, 15. I'm not quite sure. I went to my OBGYN for the first time because I was diagnosed with PCOS, and then did my first like official exam. And my OBGYN immediately was like, "Oh, you have HS." And I was like, "I have what?" And I didn't know that it was a thing. I didn't know that. I just thought that it was because I was fat and I had issues, and it was just gross, and I hated my body and I hated myself. And then I found out that there was a name for it, and immediately ran home to my dial-up computer at the time and made a search, and saw pictures of bodies that looked like mine, and it was transformative getting that official diagnosis. But I've had it since I was about, my earliest memory, I think of it, I was about 7 or 8. So it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
A long time.
Yeah.
I'm stage 3, between 3 and 4. I'm not really sure where I fall right now.
Yeah. And where does it affect you the most?
Groin.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah, and we find that very common, groin and armpits, especially for women. So.
Oh, I have it everywhere, but it's just worse there.
Yeah. Yes. Have you always been out about your HS, or is it something that you've hidden and have just recently come out about?
Good question. Yes and no. So 2 friends and family who knew me, I was more out about it because it was just something I couldn't control. And the summer was hot, and I would wear tank tops around people I was comfortable with. But then, like, flash forward to high school, and then we went kind of back into the closet, so to say, with the HS, and feeling ashamed again, and going to sleepovers, and everyone would be changing, and I would be the only one that went to the bathroom to change. And I was pretty in the shadows about it for a long while, until I think I got the diagnosis, and it took me a couple years to accept it and feel okay with it. And then at that point, like in college, I was just like, yeah, I have a disease. It's called HS. Want to see? Like, because it took the shame out of it for me. Like, it's not my fault.
Yes.
This is something that I've had since I was a child. So, all the people that say it's weight related, and I know that that's still something that's very debated medically today. I can say I was not that overweight at age 8. So I don't think that that's what it is. So that was helpful for me, and accepting it myself by looking back and saying, like, okay, I've had this forever. I wasn't fat at 8. Like, I was just a normal, maybe I was a little husky, but like nothing
right.
too wild. So I feel like I just totally went in a roundabout, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's funny because when you talk about it, like and I'm sure it doesn't resonate with just me, but everyone who's going to watch this, we all have such similar experiences. I think it just differs when you get to that point where you're ready to say like, oh, look at my armpit, I have nothing to do with this, this is something that, you know, happened to me. Yeah. And for some people that never becomes something that they're willing to do because there is such a shameful stigma attached to it. So I know for me, it was so much lighter when I let go of that secret. And it's like, you want to tell people, just do it. It will feel so much better.
Yes. Yeah. And then even when I started on TikTok, like my first, I don't know, 3-4 months on TikTok, I was still being very careful about arm placements and things like that in videos, just because people on the internet are mean. But not towards me. Like I'm so conscious of all of the women who I represent and who think that they look like me or they also have HS, and they're reading my comments. And if they see those negative comments, they might take that and internalize that onto themselves because I look like them. So I was very conscious of that and nervous about that. And eventually I just said, like, you know, I think it's important for them to see that even if I do get those comments, it doesn't bother me. So I eventually, it took a while to open up about it on TikTok on such a wide and vast platform, which, as we stated earlier, I really have no idea who's seeing my videos, and it's kind of scary sometimes. So
did you find that people were more accepting than you thought they would be, like more positive feedback, or did you find that it wasn't that way?
On TikTok, it was I think it was mixed. And it depended on the video too, like which side of TikTok my video ended up on, which is always a gamble. But I had so many people, so many women in particular saying, oh my gosh, I have that. What is that? That's an actual thing. I didn't know anybody else had that. And it was amazing. Like the comments that I had, and people, I'm going to the dermatologist tomorrow. Like, and that's why after I did that first one, I made several, because if it can keep reaching more people and they can get more assistance and be on adalimumab, I can't say that word.
Yeah, Humira.
Or whatever it is to help get them some relief and get a diagnosis, because I know what this diagnosis does when you get it mentally for yourself. So yeah, it was fairly supportive. Of course, there were people who were like, "This is gross," or "It's because you're fat," or whatever, which I always just think is funny because, like, I'm a scientist. I know how these things actually work, and people are just wrong. So yeah.
And some people are just so cruel and mean. It is super unfortunate, but thank goodness that all of the positivity, like, just absolutely outweighs that negativity.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, I mean, Instagram's a different story. Instagram is mean. People on Instagram are mean compared to TikTok. But yeah, it definitely does outweigh. And like I said, I think even one of my favorite things to do is call out the negativity and make it like into something funny, or just to show people, like, it doesn't have to be that serious. Like a comment like that, someone saying something negative to you doesn't have to tear you down and completely ruin your day, or it can be funny. I think they're funny. I get hate comments and I like literally just burst out laughing, and I'm like, this one's really creative. Like,
yeah, A for effort on
this. Yeah. So yeah, and that's a learned thing though. It wasn't always that way.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I would probably just bust into a ball of tears until I became a little tougher. So kudos to you for being able to do that. Now, most of us with HS know when you go to the doctor, one thing you're always told if you are overweight is that you need to lose weight with HS. Has that happened with you? And what is your personal experience with that? And then how would you suggest people handle that? Because it can be such a feel like a personal attack, even when it may not be.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. And that's also hard because, like, we truly just don't know. Like, the science, we don't know. There are skinny people who have HS. Yes. There are people in larger bodies that have HS. It's correlated to PCOS somehow that they don't quite understand yet. It is really hard. And I have definitely been told, like, oh, just lose weight and it'll go away. And then again, my retort is like, oh, I was 8, like, when it started. So I don't think that's the case here. In terms of advocacy at the doctors, I just really, it's hard because I am a little bit more outspoken than most people and am not scared of the authority that doctors have because I am one myself. So I kind of can go toe to toe, but I recommend for other people in those situations, bring up instances in which that's not the case. If that's not true for you, if you have lost weight at some point and it didn't get any better, make that known. Just, it's so individualized based on each person. It's hard to give just blanket advice.
Yeah.
But I would really advocate for yourself and ask, like, how familiar this dermatologist is with HS, because it's actually not that well known even in the dermatology community, which is why I just did a podcast on it. It was a 3-part series, because it's one of those things that even dermatologists themselves don't really know much about. So advocating for yourself, not letting people walk all over you, knowing some of the science behind it, do your own research, have your own resources ready and available. And then also just don't let people be a jerk to you, because some doctors are just jerks.
Yes.
Remember that you are paying them. They work for you, not the other way around. So I think that's another thing. People are like, oh, the doctor authority. No, you're paying him. If you don't like what he says, go to the next one.
Yeah.
So just keeping that in mind gives you the power back in that relationship dynamic, which I think is really helpful.
Well, and we do know, a lot of people, sweat and exercise can be triggers for them. So
Absolutely.
when people don't sit down and have a conversation with you about what your personal triggers are or what you've identified as your personal triggers, it may be a case where you can't actually do the exercise to lose weight because it's too painful. So it comes full circle, I think, a lot of times with dermatologists, where if they're not actually spending the time with you on your particular disease and what is a trigger for you, because it is so different for all of us, then they don't know how easy it is for you to lose weight or not lose weight. I had gastric bypass. It did nothing for my HS, nothing.
And I hear that a lot.
Yeah, we see that commonly in all of the support groups, that no matter how much weight you lose, it doesn't make a difference on your HS. And we know that there's a different bioburden where you do have skin touching skin, and the microbiome is different there, which is one of the reasons they think that it does have more of an impact if you do have extra weight, but that isn't also the case for everybody. So
right. And I mean, I have my own theories about that, just scientifically, like in how PCOS is related and how women with PCOS just typically carry more weight and have difficulty losing weight. And I think that that's the link that they associate with the obesity piece of it, which, again, I'm not that kind of a doctor, but
right. But some things you
together.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. Sometimes we're like, follow the trail. That's
Come on, we'll get there eventually.
Yes.
But yes, that was very well said. It's a double-edged sword as well, because it's like the more severe, painful your HS is, the harder it is to exercise, or the more that you exercise, the worse your HS becomes. So it's just one of those things where, again, it is so individualized and so personalized. Everyone's experience is so different. Like mine versus yours, and my triggers versus your triggers are probably entirely different. And that's both the beauty and the enigma of this disease.
Yeah, and how many fights you see break out about, like diet or things like that. It's like, it doesn't personally affect me, but I know that it does personally affect a lot of people. But that's just my experience. I can't speak on behalf of everybody else who that does have a huge impact for.
Even different treatment methods. Like, people will be like, this ointment works for me. And then someone's like, oh, that made it worse for me. Like, it totally is so different.
Yeah. We were just talking about this today, Denise and I actually were, about pregnancy and how it's like, it seems to be split down the middle 50-50 with those who have like almost go into remission during pregnancy, which that was my experience, or those who get way worse during pregnancy. So it was like, how do we not have this figured out yet?
Right. And then for me, like, my brand, like, that's hormones. Like, okay, something's going on with hormones. Now we're back to the PCOS theory. And like,
exactly.
It's so much unknown that it is irksome to me sometimes.
Yes, I totally agree.
Figure this out. Can we just pour in enough research? There's how much women, I know PCOS affects 1 in 10 women, and then if HS affects even half of those, that's still a huge percentage of the population.
Yeah, they're saying
most,
1 in 20 people.
yeah, that's what.
Is,
Just,
yeah.
I just did the quick math, and I'm not a mathematician. Don't
No,
ask
me
to do
neither.
but that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, and that was the crazy part too, is as soon as like I came out about my HS, I knew 2 people in my very small circle that also had HS, that I was like, how have I known you all this time? Well, because we hide it so well, you know, if that's what you choose to do. It's like I felt at the end like I deserved an Oscar for my performance of, you know, carrying on and going to work every day and
Yes.
pretending like I wasn't in a massive amount of pain. And yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing. Like, I know, like, people kind of use that term, like, medical warrior, like, insert disease here, warrior. But I really think, like, HS is such a, it's one that's not seen. It's not a visible disease. It's painful. I mean, I have stories of, remember going to grad school one day and I had, like, just a golf ball size boil or whatever you want to call it. And I remember I couldn't even, like, I had to take the train to Chicago and I couldn't even sit. And then I had to tell my professor, like, I'm just going to chill in the back of the classroom because I can't sit right now. But it's also kind of amazing looking back at all the things that I've been able to do and able to accomplish with HS and not letting it, you know, get to me, even though some days are just impossible.
Yes.
Impossible. And then
Yeah.
I have lupus, so add that into the mix, and PCOS, and it's just a whole mess.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to define who I am. And the bad days don't define who I am either, because there
Yep.
are way more good days.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of it I feel like has to do with the mindset of like, I'm not going to allow it to control me. I mean, there's so little that we can do to actually control our HS that, you know, but I decided I didn't want it to control me as a human and like just determine my life path.
Yeah.
That it was, instead of being Brinley, you know, HS and my name's Brinley, I'm Brinley and I have HS. You know, it's like deciding what comes first and what role it's going to play.
Like, you know, in the mental health field, we do that too. It's not, someone's not schizophrenic, it's a person with schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Because it's a part of you. It's not your definition.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a really powerful thing for people to remember. And it is hard because we do have such little control that, you know, kind of once you find something that works for you, it's like people in the HS realm just take hold of that and they run with it. And it's like, you want to tell everybody what works for you because hopefully it'll work for somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such, like, I remember I tried a deodorant, and my underarms have been like amazing since switching over. And I remember like posting myself in those Facebook groups. That's like, I don't know if anybody else has tried this, but just in case you haven't, like, this works for me. Just because, again, like, there's so little out there and so little resources available to us that we have to rely on each other to get through something like this. And I think that's really beautiful in itself. Like, the HS community, while it absolutely has its faults and disagreements and, like you said, arguments about diets and all that kind of stuff, it also is it's a beautiful thing that people come together with a shared experience and legitimately try to help each other because we know what that pain feels like.
Yeah, and you do want to share whatever works for you with anybody and everybody, and also tell them to avoid the snake oil and, you know, all the things that you're like, don't spend money on that because it doesn't really do anything. Yeah, so yeah, it is a tight-knit community for as many people as there are, and you know, it is amazing to see. And the doctors who we work with on the advocacy end, it never ceases to amaze me how much time and energy they put into HS and working with patients and dealing with us as advocates and trying to help and support. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen because they are so selfless with all of their time and energy, and it's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, we have some really good people on our teams.
I was gonna say, I have not encountered any dermatologists like that. Normally it's like, oh, lose weight, we can't help you. So I love that there's some that are actually joining us in this effort, and we need that. We need the science part of this to come through because everything else isn't working so far.
Yeah.
So.
And there are a lot of advancements happening and a lot of trials and studies and surveys that are happening. So that part, it's easy to get lost in that if you're not kind of in the know on what is actually happening, to say like, well, no one's doing anything. So we do hear that a lot, and it's like, no, actually there is a lot of stuff happening, but nothing happens quickly. And that with your profession, like it kind of becomes a stalemate.
Yeah, I mean,
takes a long time.
Did my own dissertation that took 4 years to do one little study. So yes, it is hard. There's a lot of red tape. There's funding issues. It's a lot of bureaucracy that it gets tied up in, which is so unfortunate, because there's people who are desperately waiting and needing of this information, and it's just not available quite yet. So.
Yeah. But it's coming. There's definitely stuff happening. So that's exciting and good.
That is really exciting.
So how do you think that we continue to help change the fat shaming culture? And like we'd kind of touched on, even amongst our own HS support groups, sometimes that can be a bone of contention about losing weight, or diet and things like that. How do you think we help continue to change that culture?
I think stop suggesting that as a solution to people that you don't know their daily habits or what they're doing, because even just saying that can be so damaging to someone who isn't quite in that space that they're ready to acknowledge their body or work on that yet, if that's something that they even want to address. So my rule of thumb is don't comment on anybody's body ever. Just ever. It's none of your business. So that would be number one.
If we stick with A, we won't have any more problems.
just let's not comment on each other's bodies. And if that's something that's worked for you and losing weight did help you, fantastic. Keep in mind that that's not the case for everybody. And also not everybody has the ability to lose weight like you might have had, or the ability to, have, like you stated that you had gastric bypass. Like that's not always an option for everybody, even if it would help their HS. And it's just a very complicated subject, right? Like people's weight is a very sensitive area, and just don't bring it up. just don't, because we don't know.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Unless we knew for 100% certain that was a cause, then I would be having a different conversation with you than I am right now. But we don't know that. So to suggest that and to potentially harm somebody by suggesting that, versus waiting for the science and figuring out what actually is the cause before you start blaming it on things that you really don't know much about yet.
Yeah, no, that's very true. What activities, I mean, I know a lot of us in the HS community especially, need help on learning how to spend more time loving ourselves and less time not loving ourselves, to be nice about it. What do you recommend for someone who wants to start that journey to kind of be more accepting of themselves and their body?
Yeah. So just in general, one of my things that I work on with my clients is following people on social media who look like you, who represent your body type, or who have HS, because there are definitely HS advocates out there. Surrounding yourself with people who look like you and not these models or I don't even know, these people that have fake pictures, etc., is so toxic for your mental health. So that's a great point to start. And seeing women or men that look like you, who are being celebrated and who have good followings and are supported, helps you feel that could be you too, and that you also have that support. I also recommend doing affirmations. I'm a big fan of affirmations in the mirror. One of my very first assignments that I give to my patients is to write a list of what they like about themselves. Post it everywhere that you feel bad about yourself, on the mirror, on the fridge, whatever that looks like for you. Constant reminders of your good qualities. Even if you're not totally accepting of your body yet, you have some good qualities that you should be reminded of. I have a lot of little tips and tricks. I don't know how many you want. I could just keep going for days.
Keep going. I think we can use all the help we can get.
In terms of, body positivity stuff, looking at yourself in the mirror and actually getting to know your body, and not just for getting to know your body's sake for the point of envisioning it, but being thankful and saying you know, I might not like the way that my arms look, but they help me lift things. I might not like the way my stomach hangs over, but it holds my organs and it helps, you know, keep me warm and safe. So having gratitude towards your body at the very bare minimum for what it does for you, which is extra hard if you have a disease because you want to say like, well, my body doesn't work, but it still does, in a lot of ways. So keeping that in mind, and just really making peace with your body and with this disease, and taking that shame piece away from it, that it's not your fault. A lot of the times, you know, we have no idea what the cause is or what the relation is. So taking that piece away and just saying like, this is my body, for good or for worse. I have one body. That's it. And that's all I'm gonna get. So why spend so much time focused on hating yourself and being angry at the world and angry at yourself and angry at your body and angry at the HS gods for giving you, it's so much more energy to do that than it is to just say, this is my body, that's what I got, this is what I'm working with.
Yep, it's the hand I was dealt.
Yep.
Yeah,
can't change it. And then people will say, but you can't genetics play a very large part in that, and it's definitely not always changeable. So just body acceptance, I think, is the best first step for self-love.
No, that makes sense. And then where would you recommend people go for more resources and help for kind of continuing on that path and learning how to love themselves more and more self-acceptance?
My favorite book that I recommend to absolutely everybody and my clients, and I do the workbook with my clients that coincides with this, is The Body Is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor. And it, like I said, it comes with a workbook, and it's wonderful and helps you question things about the world, and society, and how that plays into your relationship with your own body. And it's just a very beautifully written book. I also, The Trauma, or The Body Keeps the Score, is about how trauma affects your body, and is also a very beautiful read to help heal your relationship with your own body. I think those are my two main go-tos. And then I also recommend and do a lot with intuitive eating and helping to repair relationship with both your body and food, which is normally also a problem, especially with HS, when we're trying to see which diet works or which diet doesn't work and which foods trigger and which don't. So learning to make peace with food is also can be really helpful in your self-love journey.
Perfect. And we'll link those books in the description too, so that people will have an easy access to those. Because I know I just wrote them down too, so I'll be ordering those on Amazon.
They're helpful. Or even I have one more, the Self-Love Workbook for Women.
Okay.
That's on Amazon as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, like I said, we can all use all the help we can get. Even when you think you're like well on your way, there are always setbacks, especially in dealing with, you know, people out in the world, and the amount of influence that those people can have on you, even if you don't know them, is absolutely crazy. Yes. So I think we can all use reminders for that, even when you think you're well on your way.
And I would like to reiterate too, like, even I have like bad body image days still. It's something that you're maybe never going to be perfect at, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you wake up tomorrow and love yourself, awesome. But if you don't, that means maybe the next day you will. So just keep at it, and it'll happen eventually for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, thank you on behalf of all of the young people who are seeing you out there. Flaunt your shit and just absolutely loving it, and the empowerment that you are passing on to people my age, older than me, younger than me, my kids, their friends, everybody. I truly, truly appreciate it, because we need more people like you, especially in the HS realm.
Thank you for that. I'm going to cry again. Don't you?
That wasn't my goal.
I appreciate that. We all need that reminder sometimes. So yes. I really appreciate that. And thanks again for doing this and for doing what you do with HS. Advocacy is so important, and I love that you have resources put together and have built a community for people to come and find some solace. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
All
Thanks.
right, bye bye.